Hello everybody, my name is William and today we're going to be going over the video intercom setup. Now in today's tutorial we're going to be showing how to set up two VTOs and two VTHs and have them all communicate with each other. Now the main concept of this whole system is that one VTO is going to be the main master SIP server that's going to allow all the units to communicate with each other. So let's go ahead and get started with setting up the first VTO. We're going to be using the VTO ending in 108 as the master. We're going to be using the VTO ending in 110 as a sub, and we're going to be using the VTH ending in 155 as a master, and same thing, we'll be using the second VTH as a sub. So to initialize the VTOs, you're going to want to log into Internet Explorer. Chrome also works, but I'm into the habit of using Internet Explorer, so we'll type in the default IP address of the first one, which is going to be 108. I already have it here, so we'll just type that in. Now you'll be greeted with the device initialization page. Just agree to the terms. And here we're going to be giving it a password. So for this tutorial, we're going to be doing something simple. So I'm just going to be adding it as admin123. The email for the VTO is not required. And these VTOs have a reset button, so I won't worry about that. Okay, so logging into the VTO, the very first thing we're going to be doing is going into local settings. We want to make sure group call is enabled, or else it won't communicate with the devices that are within the SIP server. Once that is enabled, we want to go ahead and go to network, assign it the IP addresses that we need so there's no IP conflicts. And the next thing we're going to want to do is go to SIP server. So the SIP server, we're going to want to make sure that it's going to be enabled and it's going to be the SIP server type as VTO because this is going to be the master VTO. And since this is going to be the master VTO, we need to make sure that the IP address is its own IP address. So 192.168.1.108, make sure it matches to the unit. And then port, we're going to leave a default 5060. Password, this password here in the middle, where it shows username 8001, right below that, that's going to be the VTO password. But we can leave defaulted, and it's going to grab the information automatically. SIP domain, we'll leave it VDP. SIP server username and password, could be whatever you want. Now, this is just going to allow the devices to communicate in a way. So we're going to be using admin. Password, we're going to be using admin123. So same password as the actual unit itself. So to finalize everything, make sure that the enable button is checked and hit save. This started up the SIP server, so we should be good to go there. Now, the other thing we want to do before we proceed as well, just since I like finishing everything on the VTO itself, we want to go into the VTO number management. Now, here we're going to be adding the second VTO. Now, we haven't initialized it yet, but we already know the IP address, and we already know the password we're going to be initializing it with. So we're going to go in here, we're going to hit add. So the number, it's going to be the VTO number. That's going to be changed to 8002, and we'll go through that in a bit. The register password, it's going to be admin123, because that's going to be the password we're going to initialize the second unit. Actually, you know what? For the register password, just leave it defaulted. It's going to make things a lot simpler. That way we don't complicate things. So just leave the register password the way it is. What we're going to do here is IP address. It's going to be 192.168.1.110. Username is going to be admin, and then password of the VTO is going to be admin123. And then we're going to hit save. So that's going to give us the second VTO. That way you talk to each other and everything. Now, normally we would do the same thing for room number for the VTHs, but by default you already have up to 9 different extensions. So one master VTH and up to 9. So we don't have to do anything there. We'll leave it defaulted. Okay, now that the master VTA or VTO is initialized, we do want to set up the second VTO, which is going to be our sub. So same thing, we're going to open up a new tab, log into the web interface, so 192.168.110. We're going to be greeted with the same information, so we're going to want to give it a password. I'm going to use the exact same password as the master, which is 123, admin123, and then admin123 again. No email. So Log into the web interface. Whoops. Username is going to be admin. Password is going to be admin123. Okay, now for the sub VTO, we want to go into network settings. And we want to go to SIP server. So first thing we're going to do is disable this, and we're actually going to leave it disabled. Server type is going to be VTO. IP address to this is going to, this has to match the master VTO because we're telling it to communicate with the SIP server, which is the master VTO. So we'll duplicate those settings. Port 5060. Password, always leave the same, always leave default for the register username and password. SIP domain, VDP. SIP server username is going to be admin. SIP server password is admin because that's what we changed it to. So here we're going to save it. Now, when you save any SIP server information, the device is going to reboot. So we'll give it a little bit of time here. It should reboot, and you'll definitely know when it's rebooting when the tamper button or the tamper alarm starts going off. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here. I'll re-enable the video once the VTO starts to boot up. Okay, so as you can hear, the VTO is rebooting now. So what we're going to do here is go to VDP config, refresh, and just make sure that it's up and running. So it looks like it is. We're going to refresh the login page and log into the unit. Okay, so now what we want to do is go to local settings. The VTO number is going to be pretty critical because this tells the VTH and the SIP server settings that this is a secondary VTO. If you don't change this, you're going to have a lot of problems in terms of adding the VTO later onto the VTHs. So make sure that is confirmed, and we hit save. Or hit confirm, sorry about that. Okay, so now that we indicated that the VTO number is going to be 8002, that setting should translate over to the SIP server, where it was grayed out earlier, and we should be good to go here on the sub VTO. Okay, so now that we initialized the main VTO and then the sub VTO, now we want to go ahead and start initializing the VTHs. So for this tutorial, we're going to be initializing the 155 as a master. So we'll go ahead and switch over our visuals or the camera over to the VTH. Okay, so this is going to be our master VTH. This is one of our newer models, so it does have the one key config. If you do have an older model, just ignore this page. We already have a video set up for how to set up a one key config. So you can check that video out. So here we initialize the device by giving it a password, and just as, again, to simplify things, we're going to be using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the VTHs. Email is required, so we are going to have to put something in here. Okay. Here it's going to ask you for the one key config. No, we're not doing that in this video. We're going to be doing everything manually. Okay, so this is going to be the master VTH. Now, we want to click and hold the settings for about 5 to 6 seconds until the pop-up comes up. There it is, and we're going to log in with the password that we initialized it with. Once that's set up, you'll log in and you'll go over to SIP server on the left-hand side. And here we'll type in the information from the main VTO. So the IP address or the server IP is going to be the VTO. So 192.168.1.108. Network port is going to be 5060. The register password we leave alone. Domain, it's set up on the VTO as VDP, so we'll copy that. And the password to the SIP server is going to be admin, or the username is going to be admin, and password is going to be admin123. And this will give access to log into the SIP server family. Okay, so what I like doing is I like disabling it and re-enabling it. That will confirm the settings for the devices. The next thing I like doing is start to add the VTOs to the VTH. This is going to be the master VTH, so whenever we set up the sub VTH or the extension, it's going to translate all that information over to the extension, and that way we don't have to do anything. So we're going to want to go to search devices. Okay, so it looks like it already has something added already. Unsure why, but we're going to go ahead and delete that. So we'll go ahead and go to delete. And we're going to be adding the main, or the SIP server, as the first one. So we're going to hit add. Now, on the top entry, we can give it a nickname. So we'll call it main VTO. Oops. Okay. Everything else leave defaulted except for the state. We'll switch that to on. IP address, leave that alone because that's what we searched it. And password's going to be 123 because it's going to be the password of the VTO. And then we hit OK. And then hit OK on that. Okay. And now we're going to want to add the second one. So we'll highlight the second unit, hit add. We don't want to replace, we don't want to override the first one, so we want to hit the little arrow icon to the right. This is going to be the sub VTO, and that's fine. We can leave it. We can leave the name as sub VTO. State, we want to switch that to on. IP address, of course, that's what it's searched for. And then we're going to do admin 123. Set successfully. Perfect. So now what we want to do is go to VTO config and just make sure, again, this is something I like doing. I just like re-enabling everything just to have that handshake go through. Okay, once that is set up, we are going to want to, let's log back into it. Okay, just make sure everything's set up perfect. Okay, so we're going to jump into setting up the second VTH now. This is going to be the extension. Actually, one thing I did forget to mention is under the VTH settings, we are going to want to set the VTH as 9901 hashtag 0. That's going to indicate that the VTH is going to be the master VTH. So on this unit itself, on the newer models for the VTHs is already going to have 9901 hashtag 0 as the default room number, but on the older systems, normally you'll have 9901. So just make sure that the hashtag 0 is there for the master. And once we get to the secondary VTH, you're gonna have to manually input that. So we're gonna go ahead and go over to the PC. We want to refresh this. Make sure that the unit is initialized, so it looks like everything's good. So now we just need to jump over to the secondary VTH, and this is going to be set up as a sub. So let's go ahead and set that up now. Okay. So the secondary VTH is going to look something like this. This is an older model, so you'll see that it doesn't have the one key config feature on there, which is fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is going to be the password for this one as well. Email is required, so we're going to have to enter something in here. Of course, normally you would definitely want to enter your email in case the password is forgotten. And that way you guys can reset it through your email and not have to RMA the units. So once the secondary VTH is initialized, as you see on the top left-hand corner, it's 9901 by default. So that's the first thing we're going to want to do. We're going to want to change that to 9901 hashtag 1 to indicate that it's the first extension. So we'll go to VTH config to get that changed. We want to make sure that it's set up as an extension. We're going to do hashtag 1. Now it's going to ask you for the master IP. This is the master IP address for the VTH. So don't confuse it with the SIP server. Don't confuse it with the VTO. This is the VTH, the master VTH. Okay, and it's going to ask you for the master password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to want to hit OK. Okay, so what this does is it reaches out to the master VTH and it starts talking with it. It's going to ask for the information, so SIP server information, here it is. Again, what I like doing is just re-enabling that information. VTO config, it's going to receive the information from the master. So what I like doing is just going in here and hitting OK for everything, for both of them. Once they're both enabled, you can go into monitor and you can double check to see that everything's connected. So there's the master, the main VTO, the sub VTO. Seems like everything's talking with each other. Okay. So the last thing that needs to be done, well, that's usually just the end of the setup. One thing that we are missing though is that the units aren't talking to each other properly. So we're going to go over to the VTO. Okay, we're going to go over to the master VTO. So we're going to refresh this, make sure that everything's set up okay. And here, I'm going to refresh the page. And we're going to see why they're not talking. Okay, so the one way to troubleshoot everything is go to status and see if stuff is, online. If you see nothing here, one good indication is, maybe the settings didn't take effect, so we need to do a reboot. So what I'm going to do is reboot the main VTO, and we'll have everything once it reboots, it should handshake and it should start talking with other units. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot. I won't pause the video here, just so we see the process. And I'm also going to activate the camera for the VTH on my screen so you can see the indicators on the top right. Normally there is a VTO indicator or VTO icon that will tell you if they're online or not. So yeah, so that's the VTO rebooting. And on the top right, there was a VTO icon that was crossed out. Now you see that it's gone. That reboot is definitely going to help with the handshake. So that's going to be, your main big troubleshoot. Just make sure you reboot the units. Upon reboot, they're going to start doing the handshake, and everything should work fine. We're going to give it about another, 10 seconds for the VTO to completely boot up. We're going to hit that call button, and then we'll see if both the VTHs call. Okay, so that should be enough time. We're going to hit the call buttons for the VTO. Okay, so we're going to have to give it a bit more time. Let's log into the VTO itself. Let's go to network. Let's go to household settings, status, and there we go. We have the devices online, so they're slowly coming up. They're slowly initializing themselves. Okay, that's the third unit. And we're just going to wait for the sub VTO to go in here and start communicating. Let's go ahead and check over. Okay, so it looks like the sub VTO is struggling a little bit to connect. So that could be a user error. I could have accidentally misinputted the SIP server information. So I'm going to go into the sub VTO or the sub VTH, the extension, and we're going to re-enter the password. Actually, no, that's not it. We're going to disable and we're going to re-enable. Okay, and that should do the trick. Now if we call the button, you'll see that it will start calling the VTHs. And that's pretty much it. That's the setup for the VTHs, for the video intercoms, multiple VTOs and multiple VTHs. So if we're going to be setting up multiple VTOs, just make sure that the numbers for the VTOs are going to be, different. So 8001, 8002, we're going to be adding more 8003. Same with the VTHs. We already have the master, which is #0, extension 1, and that should be it. And just to confirm, just to show that the second VTH is up and running, let's go ahead and set that up here. You'll see that the VTO icon is gone from the top right. Press that button one more time. This time we'll select it from the second VTO. and you have both VTH devices calling. Okay, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.